All right, welcome back everybody to part three of this little series here on creating SketchUp components for your robotics class and 3D printing them. So today I'd like to look at kind of a more practical application of some of the SketchUp stuff we're looking at. We've done some basic design, we've done some measuring, and here I want to be able to actually build a little component. So, and a pretty common component that's kind of challenging to build, or that's challenging to access for exactly what you want, would be something like a gear or a cog. So I want to look at how we can create one of these in SketchUp, because they're often very customized to the thing you want. So you can't always buy one off the shelf that's going to work perfectly for you. So it's also going to add a few extra little cool tools to this. So I'm going to start off in this case with a couple tools just to learn how they work. The first one, which we've already looked at, is the move tool. So we just want to refresh that. If I double click on something, or triple click if it's a sphere or a solid 3D shape, I can get the move tool. Now the move tool allows me to just do that, move things if I've selected all of them. You'll notice also I can move in a particular direction. I can move a certain amount like I did before in a distance. So if I wanted to move that over 500 millimeters, I could type that and it would move exactly that amount. We can also, as you know, move different components of it. Associated with the move tool, we have a rotate tool. And the rotate tool allows us to move things, but in a rotational fashion. And you'll bring up this little protractor-like thing. And you can see the rotate tool is a little not necessarily intuitive the first time you use it. You actually have to click twice to make it work. So the first time you're going to click it, you're going to set a kind of like an anchor point, like a pin. Think about it, I'm pinning this here. So I'm going to click and pin that. And when that happens, you're going to see we get a little line out here that allows us to kind of go to another point. And for certain shapes, this doesn't really matter. If I say clicked way out here, I'm going to click again. It's going to rotate around that first point that I used. And we'll find out where the length, and it doesn't really matter if I clicked, say, here and then close, it's still going to rotate the same amount around here, but it's kind of handy idea. Also, we could go at a different angle. So keep in mind, just like when I drew something, the rotate tool will move to where I am. And if I click here and then click down, you can see this whole thing is rotating around, but it's rotating around that central point. So this brings up an interesting issue. If I wanted to, say, spin this this way around, I would either have to look way down, or I can also, like I'm looking at this angle, I can also grab it up here, make sure it's set to red, and hold down the shift. And this is going to lock the orientation of my object. This works for all of my drawing and moving tools, so that now even though I'm down on the ground, it doesn't change to the blue to spin around that way. So I can then click right in the middle, setting my point, and then clicking again, and now I could spin it around that way if I wanted to. So little handy feature about some kind of movement. Now, the reason I want to get into moving is that I want to look at creating a cog, and this moving can be really, really handy for something we're going to do a little bit later. So let's look at a cog, and we're going to start off a cog with a circle. So I'm going to drop down here to my little extras and get my circle. And one thing I want you to know about circles in SketchUp is they're not actually circles. They're actually, especially if I make this really, really big, you can see they're actually multi-sided objects that just kind of look like a circle. If you look in close here, you can see that's a very flat side actually when I made it very big. And right away at the beginning, let's see if I can click that again and see if it pops up. You can see the default number of sides is 24, which is not actually that many for a circle if we needed something really, really smooth. So if you want to change that or alter it, just like when I made some measurements, I could type it in. Now, oddly, with a circle, we actually have to do it before we type the circle, because once I've drawn the circle and I type in a number, that's going to be the measurement of the radius. You can see here, let's say I wanted a 100-sided circle after I've drawn it. Well, I actually get a 100-millimeter radius circle, so that doesn't work that way. But if I go and click my tool like that, and now I say, well, let's say I want a 50-sided circle. Now you can see, and it popped up there for a second, 50 sides. And if I drew that here, you can see it's a lot smoother. And you have to get in pretty close or make a pretty big thing to see that it's not actually a perfect circle. And this is going to be handy for our 3D printing world, because sometimes we want it very smooth, or in this case, with my cog, I actually don't want the smooth circle. I actually want a maybe even less smooth. So I'm going to grab my circle again, and this time I'm going to make let's go 24-sided circle, and we'll start off with that amount here. So I'm going to make a little gear here, set it up. And so the nice part you can see is that, yes, we have some square edges that we can build our, kind of think of as the teeth to our circle, or to our cog in a minute. And then I'm going to introduce another tool here. And we've got, beside the circle, a bunch of arc tools. For me, I'm going to pick the 2-point rounded arc here, and we're going to make a kind of a rounded cog, but you can make any cog you like. And the 2-point arc allows me to click at one spot, click at another spot, and then kind of drag out to create, as you can see, these little bumps. And if I did it, say here, there, I'm a perfect half circle. So a handy little feature that we could make like so. Now, for a cog, I actually want kind of usually a tooth out and a tooth in, and a tooth out and a tooth in, and a tooth out and a tooth in. So here's where my little rotation tool is going to come in. I'm going to select with the arrow tool. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to grab my rotation. And you can see if I were to click this here, I'm actually going to rotate the entire thing, which is not what I would like to do. Oops. Put that back. There we go. So what I want to do is grab my rotation, and I want to introduce a new idea, which is down here. Remember, in the previous video, we talked about some of the valuable things that were going to appear down below here. And this one, if I press Control, it equals toggle copy. So I'm just going to hit Control for a second. You can see there's a little plus that's appeared on my rotation. Well, when I do that, if I click and rotate, it's actually going to create a copy of the object that I wanted, which is kind of handy. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to click there, and then click here, and I'm going to spin this around like so. And you can see now I've created this little shape like this and a shape like that. I'm going to do that one more time, even on the video, that you can rewind, because it's kind of tricky. So I'm going to click to select the little outer edge there. Click on my rotation tool. Just tap Control, and you'll see a little plus on there. Don't hold it down, just tap it. And then I'm going to click the corner, because that's going to be my anchor point that I'm going to rotate around. And I'm going to drag this one out to the other end point, just because it makes my life easier. And then drag all the way around, and I should line up so that I can see that other corner hits there. So now I have this little reverse S shape, which is kind of cool. So if I'm going to make a cog, I could do that again and again and again and again and again and again. And that's going to be a lot of work. So I want to show you something that's really, really handy in SketchUp called the array copy. And the array copy allows us to repeat an action. So I'm going to grab that little S there, and I'm going to now that I've got the inside and the outside, this time I'm going to make my anchor point in the center of this circle. So I'm going to click right there, and then I'm going to drag it out to this end point right here. Now, if I were to move it at this point in time, you see my whole thing spins around. But remember, if I tap Control, I get a copy of what's selected. And you can see that I can drag that whole copy over. And because it's rotating around the center, it's going to fit perfectly everywhere along this radius, which is super cool. I'm going to just connect it right there. Now, that might be enough. I could just keep doing that. Copy, 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 copy. But here's the beautiful thing about SketchUp. Now, I've just made this copy, and I'm not going to touch anything else. But I can say that I want to repeat that a certain number of times. Now, if I think about this, I have two of these waves, and there are 24 all the way around, 24 spaces all around. So that would mean 12 copies, but I already have one. So actually I need to repeat this 11 times. Sorry, 10 times, because I've already got another one here. So all I'm going to do is say x 10 or times 10. I'm going to just type that in. Oh, no, sorry, it must have been my 11. X 11. Oh, I missed the copy. Let's do that one more time. I'm going to click on that one. I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard and click the other one if you missed that last time. That allows me to select two different things. And now grab my rotate tool. I'm going to go right into the center where it helps me out. And I'm going to click on the edge there. And I'm going to hit tap Control, and that will copy it for me. And then I'm just going to hit times 11. And now it's spun around 11 times and has repeated that each time, that movement. And I'll show you this in another minute, how we can do this, but how we can reuse this. Now that I've got this, I'm going to, let's say, create myself a circle again, because I'm going to make a cog. So I'm going to go in the center here and do this before I screw things up. Make a little center there. And now, if I wanted to make a gear, I can just erase this, erase this, erase, 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 erase. Let's just repeat that. I'm going to get rid of that line. Let's get rid of these ones too. You see, we've lost our face now, but that's okay. These were kind of temporary. And now, just to repair that face, I'm going to grab from the center here, and I'm going to do a couple lines there, and SketchUp's going to try and heal itself. Now, I put a hole in the middle earlier so that I could delete that. And you can see now we kind of got this cool cog shape. And if I use my push-pull tool, I could develop a nice little 3D gear that we could then print out. So there is an array copy with the rotation tool. Now, the array copy is by no means limited to the rotation tool. Let's say I wanted to grab this and make a bunch of them. We can do that with the rotation tool. We can also do it with the move tool. You'll notice we've got Control is copy, cycle, copy, stamp, move. I'm going to hit Control to be in the copy world here, and I'm just going to grab this, and you can see I can drag a copy here along. And let's say I move that this much. I click, I can do the exact same idea, and it's going to keep going along in a line. So times 10. And you see we get 10 perfectly evenly spaced gears that go along there. So super handy for that. Similarly, though, we can also do another thing with the array copy, which is I'm going to hit tap Control to copy it here, and I'm going to drag a copy way over here. And let's say I knew that I wanted 5 of these, and all to be nice and evenly spaced. Instead of saying times 5 or times 10, I can say divided by 5 slash 5 and hit enter, and it will then make 4 other copies. This was my first copy. 4 other copies, everything evenly spaced in between. So this is a really, really nice feature for being able to do some array copies. And I'm going to leave it there, and we'll do one more video with some ideas of called components and groups. But hopefully you can play around with that. Try and make yourself a little cog or a wheel or something and have some fun with array copies. Very powerful idea in SketchUp.